Father Joe Turay from Diocese of Makeni, Sierra Leone, Director of Justice and Peace Human Rights Commission, Diocese of Makeni, and Catholic University of Makeni. Thank you for your availability. So you participate in the Caritas Italiana roundtable on the indirect responsibility yesterday, February 9, in the World Social Forum in Dakar. Now, according to you, which are the consequences of the indirect responsibility by the Western countries on the African countries?
Well, in the first place, I want to thank Caritas Italiana for giving me the opportunity to participate in the World Social Forum. Well, when you look at the responsibility of the West towards Africa, in terms of direct responsibility, I want to quickly affirm that we are all responsible for one another, says our Pope in the encyclical Caritas in Veritate, that everybody is responsible for everybody. So whatever action one does or one takes impinges on the life of the other. Well, I want to see the West in a special way begin to support the efforts of civil society in the developing countries in Africa. When the West supports what is going on by telling the true story of what is going on in Africa, in that way they support the efforts and they are responsible. But when they don't tell the true story, then I think, for me, it's a responsibility that they should take on. A responsibility in a sense that is serious.
Thank you. You have an expertise in politics, especially in Sierra Leonean politics. Could you give us an example about it, about indirect responsibility?
Well, for example, the West should realize that what Africa needs is not only aid but trade. They should take responsibility to see that there is fair trade, that Africa has a fair share in the market, that the goods of Africa are not, the market is open towards Europe and there is no protectionism on the part of Europe. For me, these are concrete examples. What Africa needs, I think, is to strengthen, trade relationship with the West. That is where I think, the West has a responsibility. When you look at, what we produce in Africa, I think the West has a responsibility to open up their markets. And also the West has a responsibility to, take into consideration that taxes must be paid by multinational companies who are investing in Africa. I think the Western world has a duty to tell us exactly what are the taxes paid or not paid by these companies coming to Africa. I give an example. For example, in Sierra Leone, there are companies, coming to mine iron ore, companies coming to mine bauxite, but nobody knows, what exactly are their taxes, what do they pay? The Western world should insist that they open their books so that we know exactly what are the tax havens these people receive. If not, they will not contribute to us solving poverty in Africa. I think for me, these are concrete examples. Hold responsible the companies, the mining companies, whatever companies coming to invest in agriculture, let them say exactly what are the taxes being paid and what are the taxes that are not being paid.
Thank you. We always talk about the responsibility of Western countries on Southern countries. What do you think? Which are the consequences, the effects of the indirect responsibility by the African countries, African population on African countries?
Well, in the first place, let me start by addressing, every individual, the person, before I move on to the institutions. We as Africans, we must, take up our own right, our own duty to vote, to choose the right people. When you don't vote, you are not responsible. You are allowing crooks or criminals or people with personal interest to run your country. So you must vote because your vote has an effect on others. If you vote for the right people, then definitely you are going to have good governance. Like we're having our elections in 2011 in Sierra Leone, we must vote for the right people. I think that's our responsibility. Then we must be able to monitor whatever goes on in parliament, whatever goes on in local councils. For example, I mean, the work we are doing as Justice and Peace Commission is to monitor the budget of our local councils, because it is at that level, at the local level, that you can address poverty. I mean, when we sit down, we are complacent, we don't address the use of revenue in the local councils, the use of aid, money that is being given to the local councils, then we are not responsible. I mean, that's at an individual, personal level. Then when you come to, the level at a national level, you begin to ask yourself, our governments, are they interested in the future generations? The agreements they sign with multinational companies, do they monitor them? For example, do they give free tax concession to multinational companies because of the interest they will have, because of their own personal interest, because of their political interest? At times you see agreements being signed, not with a view to sustain the economy of the country, not with a view to a long-term interest of the future generation, but to the interest of the political party, to the interest of what they will gain now, the short-term gain and not the long-term gain. Also, I think our government should be responsible with the aid they receive. They should ask themselves, what do they do with this aid? Is it to build up the economy of the people, the needs of the people, to address their needs? Or is it expediency to build up their political parties? This for me are example, very concrete example of responsible politics. Responsible politics that will help the future generation, responsible politics that will sustain the economy. And also another concrete example I see, now there is land grabbing in Africa. Everybody is coming to find land for the plantation of sugar for biofuel. I ask myself, is our government looking at the long term, looking at sustainable agriculture in the long term, or are they interested to solve the problem of employment at a short term, risking the future of farmers, risking the future of the entire population, because 70% of the population are farmers. If they don't have land, what do they do? These are the questions I ask. This is what a responsible government must do. Look at sustainability, look at the future generation, and see how best we could use whatever gains we have got to sustain this generation and then the future generations.
Thank you. You talk about your role as Director of Justice and Peace Commission, but you talk about the responsibility of the countries, of the institution, to educate people, especially future generation. As Director of Catholic University of Makeni, what are you doing on it? Well,
in the first place, we are educating the political class to work for the common good. We need to have the political class to understand that it's the common good that will pay in the long run. Remember, you have your personal good, but also it's the good of the community, the good of the family, the good of intermediate societies. So we do have programs to educate the political class, to teach parliamentarians to work for the common good, to teach our local paramount chiefs, the local leaders, to work not only for the good of their party, not only for the good of their own personal interest, but for the good of the community. And then also, we work with parish groups in order to hold accountable their leaders. In other words, for them to be involved in leading all towards the common good. So we organize seminars, workshops, train our parishioners, train various sub-commission groups to hold accountable, to monitor what is happening in the community, to monitor human rights abuse, to monitor the local councils, so that the local councils will use the revenue for the good of the people, so that they will be able to deliver social services for the good of the people. And also as a university, we lead the agenda, we lead the civilization agenda. We take the lead in setting the agenda of what should happen in our country. For example, there will be elections in 2011. Now we are engaging politicians. We are bringing the agenda of what we need as a country, what are the needs of our people, and to see that, the right political party that will respond to the needs of our people, the needs of our country, becomes the party that will represent us. So these are some of the initiatives that we do in order to teach and educate our parliamentarians towards working for the common good, and to educate people, civil society groups, to work for the common good.
Thank you.